Welcome to the Burrillville School Committee, April 9th, 2019, 6:30 p.m. regular session. Burrillville High School Media Center, 425 East Avenue, Harrisville, Rhode Island. Members present, all. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 2, recognition. We have none this evening. Item 3, consent agenda. Approval of minutes, warrants and invoices, bids.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 12th, 2019. Approval of warrant number 9 for the month of March, dated April 9th, 2019, in the amount of $2,612,144.37, and also to approve the following bids. Approved bid for the A.T. Levy ceiling tile replacement to be awarded to the Construction Junction in Slatersville, Rhode Island, in the amount of $27,695. Also approved bid for the A.T. Levy lead abatement be awarded to Stillwater Construction, Pasco, Rhode Island, in the amount of $57,450.
We take these two separately, please.
Yes, I'll withdraw the approval of bids.
No, these, we'll go ahead and approve these two, and then we'll take the new ones.
And the third
separate.
one you want to hold off on?
We'll take the new ones separate, please.
All right.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve the recommendation of a portable graduation stage bid to be awarded to Stage Right in the amount of $48,118. This bid award is contingent upon the approval from this committee to use undesignated funds for the purchase of this request.
I have a motion, a second. I need a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Is this to replace the graduation stage that we have now?
That we currently have now, yes.
And it will be built out of plywood and wood?
Oh, no, this is it's a prefab stage, that's aluminum, ADA compliant. It's actually a company that puts it together.
It can be portable then?
Oh, yeah, it's portable, you can break it down and store it. Yeah, our old one is antiquated, it's not ADA compliant,
Okay.
heavy, trying to be proactive before somebody gets hurt with this thing. Somebody falls off this thing or something like that, happens during graduation. We're gonna have,
So this will be made out of aluminums? Okay, thank you.
Bill, what's the life expectancy on that stage?
at least 30 years.
And it's to be used for more events than just graduations.
It has a stage if we wanted to put anything up there, if we want to make any kind of presentations at the rink or anything like that, we can use it. This includes the stage, the ramps, and also the risers.
Okay.
So for example, if we had that stage during the national banner presentation for the Special Olympics, we would have used that in the rink.
It's real easy to set up, it's safe, it's ADA compliant, it has railings, it's up to today's standards.
What size will it be? How big will it be?
The stage
Same,
itself is 12 by 22, it's actually a little bit bigger.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
the beauty of it too is say our graduation class got a little bit bigger, we can add sections onto it.
Oh.
You can buy sections and 8-foot sections that you can add onto it. You can go higher and you can go wider.
nice.
Will we have it for this year's graduation?
Yes.
Anyone else? Having none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the second part of that the attached request. We'll need a motion for approval on the attached request.
Okay, what he said.
The attached request.
Oh, that's,
To fund paying.
Use, right.
Yes, I included that in my, and used the,
It was included in the motion, yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Okay,
Yes,
Yeah.
in that motion.
thank you.
My apologies.
Item 4, presentations by the public to the school committee. First item, BPAC, grant coordinators.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, before Monica gets started, I just wanted to give some background information.
That'd be great. Monica,
On
if you would
BPAC.
just let Alex speak for a minute, please, thank you.
So when I invited Monica to come to our meeting, I reached out to Colonel Lynch to provide some additional background information on BPAC. So he shared the following paragraph with us. So BPAC was formed in 2013 with Dr. Pilata and Colonel Lynch getting together to bring back a similar group that was formed in the past. It was put together as a result of the substance abuse issues the community was and had been facing, including the initial spike in heroin use, which had been reported to the colonel that it was being seen in small episodes at the high school. BPAC was formed and had different coordinators through the years until we found Monica Blanchette in a full-time role through the grant and town funding initiatives. Gaby Abadi was also a huge force in bringing back BPAC, as well as instrumental in gaining grant funding for Burrillville and guiding the mission of BPAC. John Pacheco joined us early on and has been a huge supporter and member of BPAC, also from the very start. It was Dr. Pilata, John Pacheco, Gaby, and the Colonel that served as the committee to develop the full-time coordinator's position and brought Monica on board. Monica has been a great resource and advocate for Burrillville and BPAC's fight against substance abuse with our school-aged population. She is in every school and the driving force behind so many programs to create awareness and skills in addressing substance abuse. Prior to Monica, BPAC was involved in many school initiatives, such as speakers to include Chris Herron, and programs such as the Job Fair. Monica's efforts have moved the coalition forward in so many ways, most of which have been through her efforts either directly or behind the scenes, accompanied by the strength, insight, and support of all members of the subcommittee. So I thought it would be very beneficial for the entire committee to invite Monica here to speak on some projects and initiatives that the BPAC subcommittee's been working on. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. So I'm Monica Blanchette. Nice to meet you all. Good evening. I am the Substance Use Prevention Coordinator for the town of Burrillville. First, I want to start off just telling you all a little bit about myself. I'm a licensed mental health counselor here in the state of Rhode Island. I also recently received my certification as an Associate Prevention Specialist for the state, which was one of the requirements when I was hired for this position. So I went forward with that. The next step is to become a certified prevention specialist. So that's the next step up. I am a certified student assistance counselor. So you have 2 student assistance counselors here in Burrillville, one at the middle school, Crystal Alves Amoroso, and Janet McClendon, who's here at the high school. So I served as a student assistance counselor in Woonsocket High School prior to coming aboard here in Burrillville. I am a registered drama therapist and currently the president of the New England chapter of the North American Drama Therapy Association. So what that means, it's a lot of fancy verbiage, is that when I engage in sessions with clients, from a therapeutic standpoint, I'm using theater techniques to help them work through their traumas and to work through any issues that they have, rather than just your traditional sit and talk session. I have a master's in mental health counseling with a specialization in drama therapy through Lesley University. I was an adjunct professor of performance, presence, and pedagogy at Merrimack College. And my favorite roles that you can't see on there, I am a mother and a wife. I have a 2.5-year-old that I just adore dearly, so she's the driving force behind a lot of the work that I do. Some of my roles and responsibilities, basically in a nutshell, is to carry out the scope of work for BPAC, the Burrillville Prevention Action Coalition. I help to manage and coordinate and organize any initiatives. I apply for grants. I follow through with any of the stipulations that a grant would lay out. I manage and coordinate the budgets of the grants set out for me, along with the budget that the town has given me. A lot of what I do, I try to offset with budgets with grant money versus having to spend any money out of the town for my initiatives. I act as a resource here for the school department, for the police department, and anyone else who would need me in Burrillville to talk about prevention initiatives, substance use, and how it impacts the body and the brain. And BPAC's objectives, we want to collaborate with the school district, local governments. We want to collaborate with the community, really just to educate the community in prevention methods and strategies, and really let people know how alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs are impacting our community. My goal is to try and educate everyone so we can have a shift in how people perceive different substances and how people perceive those who use those substances. We want to come from a place that isn't of judgment, but one where we can impact some change and affect people in a way that is positive and help them to get into treatment and recovery. But there are different levels of prevention, one being primary, which is to get people before they actually start using, and then we have secondary and tertiary prevention levels, which is to get people as they've started using and then to maintain a place of recovery. So we try to tackle all those levels. Most of the work that I do, though, focuses on primary prevention. So what I think is really unique about Burrillville and the system and the programs that we have is that the way Burrillville has designed this is we really follow SAMHSA's continuum of care. We look at promotion, we look at prevention, but we also have Michelle Harder, who is running the Burrillville Addiction Assistance Program, and she covers the treatment and recovery side of this model. So we really cover the full spectrum in SAMHSA's continuum of care. I focus on the first half, Michelle focuses on the second half, and because we work in an office together, we get to team up on certain initiatives and make sure that we are doing the best that we can. So last year we had a town hall on opioids, and the two of us partnered up to make sure we had some really great speakers and some really great panelists for that forum. And our numbers showed, I mean, we had a little over 50 people, which sounds like a small number, but in comparison to prior years where we had maybe 13, 14, and compared to neighboring towns such as North Smithfield and Woonsocket that had about 15 people at their town halls, we had a really big success last year with that town hall. This year, our town hall is aimed at looking at e-cigarettes and nicotine, and we plan to make it an interactive event, so that's going to be at the end of the month on April 30th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Jesse Smith Memorial Library. So we're really excited. Lots of things that we're going to be doing there. One thing that I'm really excited for that event is we're going to have Hidden in Plain Sight set up in the back conference room of the library. Hidden in Plain Sight will be just for the adults, just for parents to go in and see how a typical teenager's bedroom is set up and how a lot of these vaping devices, these e-cigarettes, can be hidden right there in front of you without you realizing it. They also have different articles of clothing that are designed specifically to hide e-cigarettes and vaping devices and all sorts of things. So we will have all of that there for parents to explore and to learn more about what could possibly be in their child's bedrooms without them realizing. Prevention efforts in Rhode Island. So Rhode Island as a state, I think, is really unique. We've brought together the 34 community coalitions to form 7 regional coalitions. Burrillville falls under the Blackstone Valley Regional Coalition, so Region 2. So a lot of the regional efforts that we work on, we're working on them with North Smithfield, Woonsocket, Cumberland, Lincoln, Pawtucket, and Central Falls. Which is great because we have a diverse set of neighbors and different approaches to tackling prevention. As well as learning from some of the other regional coalitions and seeing what their strategies and what their initiatives are. So it's a lot of working together when it comes to Rhode Island. Initiatives through BPAC. So Project Alert. This year and last year I went into 7th grade classrooms, worked on Project Alert, and that's an 11-week curriculum or 11-session curriculum. And we're talking about substance use, how it impacts the body, but also how to say no. Really effective rejection strategies and ways to say no to peer pressure. So that's part of the Project Alert curriculum. 8th graders get a 3-session booster. So we go ahead and we go through that. I've assisted the student assistant counselor at the middle school with the after-school STAR group. Those kids this year, they're so much fun. I love working with them. We have some really spunky 6th and 7th graders who are into prevention, so I'm really excited. We also had 4 7th graders show interest in participating in a youth summer summit. And so the summer summit was really designed for high school students, so 8th graders going into 9th, but these 7th graders showed a lot of interest. So I went ahead and I contacted the organizers of the summit and asked for approval to allow our 7th graders in, and they gave us the thumbs up. So we're going to be sending those 7th graders to the summer summit because they're so excited to be a part of it. I've done presentations for parents and students at the 9th grade orientation. This year was regarding vaping. Also, I'm very proud of working with Barbara Damasco. We reviewed and updated the health curriculum for the 12th grade students. We created a little piece called Brain Health. And I thought that was really important because I think at that level, in terms of development and understanding where students are going forward, it's important for them to understand how their brains have developed, how they are still developing, and will continue to develop up until they're about 25 years old. And so understanding how substances are really going to impact that development and allowing them to make those adult choices, but make them really, make them informed. Assisted with things like pre-prom dinner, the mock crash. Like I said earlier, we had a town hall on opioids. This year we're going to have one on, on nicotine and e-cigarettes. Regional initiatives, Above the Influence, some of our neighboring communities are working on Above the Influence. We take little bits and pieces of that and infuse it in our STAR programs with the kids here, so we haven't renamed it Above the Influence, but we're using some of those strategies. Life of an Athlete, Hidden in Plain Sight, so again, something that neighboring communities have used, we're going to be using at our town hall. Drug Take-Back Days, our next one is at the end of April. It's Saturday, April 27th from 10 to 2 p.m. and we're going to have a secondary collection site at Pasco Fire Department. So not just the drop box that you have year-round at the Burrillville Police Department, but also a secondary site. We tried that out back in October, and we had 2 boxes full of prescription medications that people brought in, and it was a rainy, cold, miserable day. So if we could get 2 boxes on a rainy, cold, miserable day, I'm hopeful that this time around we have a nicer day and people come out and we really get those prescription medications that are unused and expired out of people's homes. So why I do what I do, I mentioned this earlier, it's the adolescent brain. I really think that with all the research that's happened over the course of the last 10 years even, what we know about the adolescent brain is so fascinating and so wonderful, and it's just such an exciting time. The brain is developing and doing so much in terms of growth that I really want to help students understand that this is a time that they really don't want to mess with it. They really don't want to introduce those substances and change the way the wiring happens, because the way the wiring happens now really sets them up for life later on. So the habits they get into in adolescence are the habits that their brain starts to form, fuse into in early adulthood, and then that's kind of a difficult way of thinking. Those patterns of thinking are so much harder to break as adults than as children and as adolescents. So trying to get them into the right habits and trying to get them to understand that right now is a crucial and critical time in their development is really what motivates me. So again, I mentioned earlier, the brain is not fully developed until 25 years of age. Some studies are starting to show that it could be a little later, as late as 29 years of age. But I think the most important thing is an adolescent's brain is still as vulnerable as that of a toddler. So I look at my 2.5-year-old and I look at how precious she is and all the development she's going through, and I'm watching with wonder. But then I'm also looking at all these adolescents in the high school and I'm thinking, gosh, your brain is just as fragile as hers, and you guys don't seem to think that. So trying to get them to understand that those are important points for them to relate to. It's a time, adolescent brain development is a time where you can learn new skills and tasks at the easiest. You can absorb that information, your brain, your body, all of it works together, and it's at its peak learning potential. And the prefrontal cortex is developing, and that's the last part of the brain to mature. And that's the part of the brain that's responsible for things like decision making, multitasking, social awareness, you know, interacting with other people, making those decisions, those judgment calls. That's all happening during adolescence. So I love it when I talk to parents and they say, well, you know, I have this straight A student, but they made this really silly decision. And I'm like, yeah, they will, because they're adolescents. That's what their brain is wired to do. They're supposed to learn from this, you know? So for me, a lot of it has to do with making sure that people understand that this is natural, it's all part of development, and that, you know, the one vape here or the one drink here really does make a big impact in terms of how the wiring of their adolescent's brain is going to form for the future. Again, talk about the prefrontal cortex, empathy, insight, fear modulation, morality, all of these things. Really important higher functions and reasoning that need to develop within adolescence, that if we introduce substances, we kind of put a halt on that development, and they might not be able to develop these key functions. So trying, again, to let adolescents know, all drugs are chemicals. Smoking, injecting, inhaling, or eating any substance affects the way their brain system communicates. So whatever you take in, it's going to impact the way your brain is going to perceive and function. It interferes with the way nerve cells normally send, receive, and process information. All substances that you take in are going to imitate natural neurochemical messengers that are in the brain, neurotransmitters. They're going to mimic them, and they're going to throw the reward system out of whack. And what I mean by that is they're going to increase how much dopamine is being released. And so an unnatural amount of dopamine that's created gives your brain a false set of hope or a false expectation that the only way that it's going to feel any type of reward, motivation, or pleasure is through that outside stimulus. And so people start to seek out, even after trying a substance once, they start to seek out that pleasure because the dopamine release was so much higher than what the body could actually naturally create. So for anyone who wants to talk about substances, prevention, or brain development, I'm available at any point in time. My contact information is up there for you. I'm sure you're going to receive the packet with my contact information. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in and talk to you. Does anyone have any questions?
I'd just like to say that I really appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm and the things that you're offering, because that's really insightful. You know, just what you presented, you know, enlightened me to some things that I wasn't even aware of. So congratulations and thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this updated packet will be included in the weekly update either this week or next week. So just so you have it for all
I'm
your...
sorry, I can't hear over here, I don't know.
I try not to talk into this. This
Put it right in front of you.
This updated packet will be included in our weekly update.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the packet we have, the presentation we have in the packet, so it'll be provided to us for our records.
Next item, high-quality curriculum adoption. Julie Mayhew.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
So I'll try not to talk too long about this. I try to remember that not everybody's as excited about curriculum as I am. But I did want to share some information with you about kind of the direction that the state is heading in and where Burrillville is heading in terms of our curriculum materials. So, and I've been sharing this with you in bits and pieces over the past year or so, but of course we have some new people and there's some updated information. So the history is that round about last year, beginning of last year, we started to hear some conversations among the General Assembly and from Rhode about the possibility of adopting a statewide curriculum. And the sense is generally that probably is not going to happen, but at the time I started to think, I don't think we're going to go to a statewide curriculum, but I do think we're going to get to a place where Rhode is going to start saying, there are going to be certain curriculum materials that you're allowed to use, and this is the list. And you have to pick from this list. And sure enough, that's actually where we're ending up right now. So in preparation for that, last year, Rhode started to work very closely with an organization called Ed Reports. And Ed Reports is an organization that is entirely run and operated by educators. And their sole purpose is to evaluate the effectiveness of curriculum materials. And they're very careful to make sure that the evaluators, this is hundreds and hundreds of teachers at all levels across the country, that the people who are evaluating these materials have no skin in the game, that they are not specifically using those materials already in their classroom, and that they are looking at them through very, very carefully organized gateways, if you will. So they're looking with very, very structured rubrics, and everybody is looking for the same information and gathering lots and lots of information, essentially doing all of the hard work and the heavy lifting that a curriculum adoption team would have to do in a district to make an informed decision. Along with that close work with EdReports, they've also been sponsoring professional development for teams from different districts. So last year, the curriculum directors, the assistant superintendents, we were able to participate in what they're calling a series of honors colloquia, where we met and we were able to learn more about this process that EdReports goes through and the process of adopting high quality curriculum. And then if districts wanted to, they were invited to bring teams this year for additional training with Rhode. So that's what I did. I got a district team together of our middle school teachers, and I kind of want to have a shout out here to the people who've been involved because they've put in a heck of a lot of work this year. We had 3 middle school math teachers, Jay Brochu, Kyle Wilson, and Sarah Pine. Katie Lord, who's the principal of the middle school, Christy Craig, the chair of the math department at the high school, and myself participated in 6 full days of professional development this year with EdReports to learn how to go through the process of selecting high quality curricular materials. So I kind of want to talk you through that process because we're going to present our information tomorrow night to parents, and I wanted you guys to have the information first. So. Why even select a new curriculum? So we're at a point now where it's not a surprise that our student scores on math assessments are not where they should be, and that our teachers have been expressing concerns for quite some time that our current math curriculum is not fully aligned to the state standards. And what I actually mean by that is when we switched over our math curriculum and we wrote it ourselves in the district, we abandoned our curricular materials, right? At the time, when we adopted those state standards, all the publishers were kind of scrambling to slap stickers on their materials that said, we are aligned with the Common Core state standards, or we are aligned with the Rhode Island state standards, and nobody had actually proved that yet. So we decided that we were not going to invest in curriculum materials that had not been proven to actually be aligned and effective. And so as a consequence, what was happening was that teachers were kind of pulling from materials they already had or materials they might have already seen to find the stuff that they were going to use to teach these standards. And that means that from classroom to classroom and grade to grade, there really wasn't a whole lot of consistency. So, and that was a concern for everybody across the district. Teachers and parents have also been expressing that concern that the instructional materials don't always seem to be consistent from grade to grade or even throughout a grade level. And so along with that, our current materials, because everybody was kind of pulling and using something different, they didn't reflect that continuous progression of learning, meaning we're sending kids on with gaps, right, from one grade level to the next. And the analogy I like to use is, you know, we have some tremendously smart and talented teachers who are all working very, very, very hard. If you get Julie Mayhew as your 3rd grade teacher, I'm going to work really, really hard every day, and I'm going to teach your children as much as I possibly can. But my passion and my expertise are in ELA. So you are going to come out of 3rd grade reading like your hair is on fire, and you're going to be writing like a champion, and I'm going to get you through math. And I'm going to do a good job with the math materials I have in front of me, but I don't necessarily have the expertise or the professional development and background to deeply and thoroughly know those standards in the way that my colleague next door to me might. The kids in her class are going to have an incredible depth of knowledge in math. Now, if those kids go grade to grade to grade, getting teachers like the person next door to me, they're going to have an awesome skill set in math. Mine are going to be okay. Mine are going to be great in reading, right? So what happens is that if you continue to get teachers like Julie Mayhew in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, you're just going to be okay in math. You're going to do okay, right? You're going to get by, but you might be missing some areas of depth, and you might have gaps in your knowledge and skills. And the same might be true for the ELA person on the other side.
You can give yourself more credit than that, Julie.
Well, I mean, I like to think of myself as a pretty smart person and a good teacher, and that's exactly what we have in this district. A lot of really smart people who are very good teachers. But let's face it, as an elementary school school teacher especially, you're the jack of all trades, and it's impossible to be an expert in everything. You cannot possibly be an expert in math and in reading and in writing and in science and in social studies, right? So we all have those pockets of expertise, if you will. And we lean on each other and we learn from each other, but it makes the task very difficult, and it sometimes creates gaps in kids' learning. So the last piece of that, too, is that teachers are spending a lot of time having to find the materials with which to teach, or creating them themselves, because they didn't have anything necessarily in front of them. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why it was a good idea for us to start looking for some new instructional materials. And I just wanted to share with you some of the recent research around this, in case you weren't aware of it. You know, we all talk about the fact that teacher quality is the greatest indicator of student success in the classroom. It still is, but instructional materials are a very, very, very close second. They have a greater impact than even the student's home life or other factors that are involved in the student's school. Instructional materials are second only to teacher quality in terms of the effect that it has and the impact it has on students' learning over time. And it's a budget neutral conversation, because it's no more expensive to put good instructional materials in a classroom than it is to put bad instructional materials in a classroom. So, and just so you have a sense of what's going on, you know, nationally around the country, the average teacher spends about 12 hours a week either sifting through materials to find them or creating materials themselves. 12 hours a week, just to find what they're going to use to teach the next day. And where are they looking? Google, Pinterest, Teachers Pay Teachers. A lot of people were referring to the Engage New York site, because New York did a lot of work ahead of the rest of the country. But teachers are heading online to supplement or to piece together bits and pieces of the curriculum. And the other piece is that they are second guessing themselves, right? So I could spend hours and hours and hours finding instructional materials and not necessarily be sure that what I've chosen are the best instructional materials or the correct instructional materials, because the minute I see my colleague next door using different instructional materials, I'm going to say, oh, wait a minute. Maybe those are better, right? So there's never a point where so all these really, really smart people who are doing really, really lots of work and working very hard are not necessarily feeling confident in themselves and their ability to pick the right materials for their students. And that's a waste of everybody's time and energy. That could be so much better spent, and that's also what we're trying to accomplish. So we decided to move forward with trying to select some instructional materials. And who selected it? Well, I explained to you who our diverse group was. A principal, several teachers, the department chair from the high school, and myself. We all participated in this work to try to work together to do it. So how did we make our decision? So we spent about 6 days getting training on the evaluation and selection of high quality instructional materials, which was incredibly beneficial and that I hope we'll be able to carry forward as we continue to make decisions about the materials we're bringing into our classrooms. We also observed classrooms to see what's going on. We used a lot of feedback from our teachers to make a list of key criteria for selection, and we started with our non-negotiables. What must our new curricular materials have? Certainly, right at the top of the list, alignment to the state standards, right? So alignment across the grade level, so there's consistency across the grade level. And then we talked about vertical alignment, so that I know when I'm a first grader going into second grade, I've got all the foundation I need to be successful in second grade, and so on. So we're sending students without gaps. To be perfectly honest, one of the non-negotiables for me was the budget. I didn't want to select a curriculum that was going to cost us an exorbitant amount of money. So we were very careful to make sure that we were looking at materials that were not expensive. And then we also talked about the things that we would like to have, right, such as a technology component. And especially for me, in math, integration of the best math practices and best practices for instruction in the classroom to make that more clear for teachers, so that we not only have the clarity of the what we're teaching, but also the clarity of how we're teaching it. So supports for teachers in terms of thinking about grouping their students and about providing supports for students who are struggling, or extensions for students who are being very successful and are ready to move on. All of those would hopefully be embedded in the new curriculum. We also got feedback from parents. We surveyed all the parents at the middle school, and we asked them for their feedback about what materials they saw their students using and how that was helping them. We certainly looked at our district math data, and we eventually narrowed it down to 2 finalists. So we narrowed down to Eureka Math, which would be a partner to the Eureka Math that we adopted at the elementary level, which would seem very logical, and to a product called Open Up. And then we had 2 of our 6th grade teachers actually field test the materials in their classrooms. So Jay Brochu and Kyle Wilson throughout this year have actually been using Open Up in their classrooms to try to give us some feedback about how that's working and whether it makes sense for middle schoolers. And so we've been getting their feedback as well. So in the end, we ended up at Open Up Math. And we're really happy about that decision. And the reason we landed there is because it met all of our non-negotiables, so it's very strongly aligned to the academic standards. The daily lesson structure really provides lots of opportunity for student practice. One of the things that happens when you're teaching, especially if you're if there's a lot of material to get through and you're not certain about where the sort of overall structure of your materials, in other words, where you're going from start to finish across your grade level and then vertically. So there's a lot of teacher-driven conversation. We wanted teachers to have the freedom to know, I know where we're going and I know how we're getting there, and so I need to have my kids doing the heavy lifting and the hard thinking that comes with mathematical proficiency. So the structures of these lessons really gives us lots of opportunities for students to talk with each other, to engage in problem solving, to do the heavy lifting of math learning. Every lesson includes a daily debrief for students to not just talk about getting the right answer, but to talk about what they learned that day. Why did this work? How did this work? Why would you do it again? Which strategies did you use? Were there more than one strategy that was effective? Was there a strategy that was ineffective? And the idea there too is to make sure that students at all levels of learning are engaged in the material and are able to learn from each other. It includes a substantial amount of resources to help teachers with planning, and again, that includes that piece I was talking about with the scaffolds for struggling learners and the extensions for the learners who need more. It's exceptionally highly rated by the teachers who participated in the selection and gave feedback on the materials. Open Up actually gets the strongest possible ratings from Ed Reports of any other middle school math program that's available anywhere. And our teachers who used it loved it and thought it was fantastic. So one of the pieces we really like about it as well is that it's divided into fewer units of instruction so that the material is taught in greater depth. Again, so students are leaving, what is it, a mile wide. We used to, sometimes we get into the habit of teaching a mile wide and an inch deep, right? We try to cover a whole lot of material but don't go in depth. This is just the opposite. There are fewer concepts being taught, but they're taught much more deeply and much more thoroughly. One of the nice things about Open Up is that it also includes a lot of resources for parents. So parents can access all of the units of study with tip sheets and resources online. Open Up is entirely available online. It's not an online program. I want to make sure the distinction is clear. But all the materials are available for teachers, for parents, for students. It can all be accessed online. All the lesson plans, all of the work that's done, it can all be accessed online. And it's free, which is fantastic. Now, I'm going to put the caveat on that it's free like a puppy's free, so, which is Open Up's language, right? So what they say is that they want to give us the materials for free so that we can put our money where it's important, which is in the professional development for teachers. Because it's one thing to hand the teachers a big binder full of materials, but it's a whole other thing for them to really learn how they need to be used. We're very fortunate, and I hope we will continue to be so, that we've gotten a pretty substantial grant funding in terms of Title II and Title IV that support professional development. And so when we find out what our allocation is this year, we have not yet, I'll be looking at that to set aside funding from grants to support the professional development for teachers in Open Up who are adopting this year. And that'll be a 3-year professional development, sort of heavy-hitting professional development process with follow-ups as we go. But that will be entirely grant funded. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited about the fact that we're bringing in spectacular materials without actually costing anything from our operating budget. So that was a big non-negotiable for me. So I'm really happy we landed there. So what's next? So the team of district educators, so this is our middle school teams. They've been meeting throughout the spring and they're continuing to. So the teachers who have not been field testing Open Up have been actually going in to observe it in action in the classrooms of the teachers who are field testing. Katie has been fantastic about setting up common planning time for the math teachers who are currently using it in field testing to meet with their colleagues to talk about the organization and the setup and the logistics of what they'll need to do when they start the new school year. And then there's been ongoing conversation about some of the logistics. For example, one of the pieces that we're still working out is what are we going to do with the students who are in our advanced math classes. So students who took that accelerated math in 7th grade and then take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. We're excited that Open Up actually is supposed to be publishing their Algebra 1 curriculum in the fall. And so we should have access to that. For the current year, we're going to continue to teach Algebra 1 as it mirrors the Algebra 1 at the high school. And so we're not at all concerned about that. We think that that will be just fine. The alignment should be good. But then we'll look at the new materials as they come out from Open Up and see whether that alignment makes more sense. Certainly throughout the summer and into the fall, we'll be looking at the preparation of materials, scheduling the professional development sessions. Teachers will begin their PD before the end of the school year so that they will go home for the summer having had at least one session where they can think through the logistics and think through what it means in terms of changes and shifts in their classroom, and they can be preparing for that over the summer. And then they'll have additional PD when they come back in the fall and then throughout the year, so that all the math teachers in grades 6, 7, 8 will pilot this next year. So that was sort of the quick overview. Any questions?
I have a question. This was very interesting regarding math, but are you going to do this with any other subjects?
Yeah.
Because the curriculum for some of the other subjects can be very in-depth also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started with math, so all of the curriculum goes through a revision cycle, so all curricula has to be reviewed and revised every 5 years. And so what happened was that the new information from the Department of Ed and all of this sort of shift that started happening coincided with the cycle for math. And so that's why we went to Eureka last year, or this year actually, and I'm already thinking about things in terms of next year, and Open Up next year. And then while we're piloting Open Up next year, we're going to start looking at curricula for reading in the elementary grades. So we've got a foundation in K1, 2. We're looking to build in a broader curriculum set for grades 3 through 5. So it's going to be an ongoing process.
Ongoing process. It's going to take many years.
Yes, absolutely. And then once it's implemented also, it's not just sort of a pick it and we're done. Then it's several years of rollout. So yeah, I think it's going to be probably, I feel like in the next 2 to 3 years, we should really start seeing a serious impact, I hope, on our test scores and also on the continuity of skills as kids are moving up into the middle school and then the high school. So
Good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
It's my understanding that Eureka is in the elementary grades.
Correct, K through 5.
And this Eureka does neatly fit into Open Up?
So yes, so Eureka and Open Up are aligned to the very same sets of standards and follow in 6 through 8, they follow the same content materials. So students who've been in Eureka K through 5 should be able to slide very neatly into Open Up. I do think that this first year, it was hard to tell with the field testing because it was the first year. Some kids had Eureka and some kids hadn't, and then it was the first year of Open Up. Next year, I think we'll start to get a clearer picture of where there might be some gaps from Eureka to Open Up from 5th to 6th grade. But the 6th grade teachers have been communicating very closely with the 5th grade teachers about that. And I don't think, based on our evaluation of the 2 programs side by side, that we're going to see much of that. In terms of gaps. I'm excited about that. Yeah, and ultimately part of the reason we didn't go to Eureka is that Eureka at the 6 to 8 level doesn't get the same kinds of ratings as it does at the elementary level. It's very, very strong at the elementary and not so much at the middle school in terms of its usability and alignment. It starts to fall off a little bit, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd just like to point out that you had mentioned gaining access to online materials.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a huge piece for parents that have expressed frustrations with some of the new math.
Yeah.
The way that we're still sticking with that same sort of different ways you can add in the slants and the. You know, I mean that was a huge.
They're mind-boggling.
Yeah, that was a huge issue for parents. I mean,
Yeah.
they just didn't understand what was going on, and even as you move along further, for myself trying to remember Algebra 2 stuff. My own kids where's your book? Well, we don't have. If we can go online and see that, so that's really what you're saying is that
Yeah.
parents can access the stuff together with their kids and say, all right, I get it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to go on yourself and poke around, you can just Google Open Up or go to openup.com. And also mustangmath.org is the Google site that the 6th grade teachers created. That's actually our BMS resources for math. And Jay and Kyle did a tremendous job with this. So it would be fun to poke around and look at it. But yes, so in terms of thinking about the math too, when we surveyed the parents, that was one of the frustrations that definitely came up, all these different ways of doing math that are so different. And there's a lot of emphasis on all of those sort of different ways of doing it, especially K through 4, really trying to teach that number sense. And then once you hit 4th and 5th grade, you do start to learn those more traditional algorithms so that they have multiple choices. And in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, for the most part, they come back to those traditional methods of doing math, but students also have a choice about how they want to solve problems. So that they can, if you're a student who's very visual and kind of needs to draw all that lattice work to make the math work for you, then you're able to do that. And if you know your facts and you can do it more quickly in the traditional algorithm, then you're able to do that as well. So.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for the initiative and the hard work that you and the staff are doing on this. I'm sure it's going to benefit the students.
I hope so.
Very
Thank you.
much.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Julie.
Thank you.
Item 5, public comment. Anybody wishing to speak this evening? Having none. Item 6, personnel, appointments, leaves of absence, retirements, resignations.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the following retirements. Peter Godfrin, Social Studies, Burrillville Middle School, effective July 1st, 2019. Timothy Durrigan, Technology here at the high school, effective June 30th, 2019. John Gillette, Special Education, Burrillville High School, effective June 30th, 2019. Ellen Sandstrom, Family and Consumer Science, Burrillville High School, effective June 30th, 2019. And John Wignott, Physical Education, Health here at the high school, effective June 30th, 2019. And I would like to thank them for their 33 years of service here in the district. So just to thank them for their decades of hard work for us.
Second.
Motion to second, discussion. Having none, all in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the following resignation. Karen Raglan, .2 English Language Learner Teacher, effective June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion to second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to approve the following leaves of absence. Robert Barrows, grade 5 teacher at Callahan, honor before June 5th, 2019 through November 12th, 2019. Kayla Dyer, grade 4 teacher at Callahan, honor before May 20th, 2019 through November 4th, 2019. And Holly Richardson, art teacher here at the high school, extend her leave to January 21st, 2020.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Make a motion to approve the following appointments. Susan Shields, TA Unified Basketball at the middle school, effective retroactive March 14th, 2019. Charlene Walsh, extended school year ESY Program Director, $3,500. And Maria Mansella, .2 English Language Learner Teacher, effective August 26th, 2019.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the following athletic appointments for the 2018-2019 school year at both the high school and the middle school as presented.
Second.
Motion is second, discussion. Hearing none, all in
I just
favor?
have a question, if you don't mind me asking, being the newbie on the board. A couple of times I've seen them coming, the athletic appointments coming up, and they come to us after the season has started. Is that the normal practice of how?
Well, ideally, it would come before, but unfortunately, that has been the case more often than not, that we have coaches who begin the season and then are appointed. Part of the reason, obviously, is we meet once a month.
I'm sorry.
Part of the reason is because we only meet once a month, we have to wait for official appointment from the school committee. We don't want, we don't want practices and games to go on without certified coaches. So we place them in that position and then retroactive to the date. A lot of times they're returning coaches who have been here before. If they're new coaches, usually it's pending paperwork.
Okay.
As soon as they get their BCI and other paperwork in, then they start.
I'd like it noted that the baseball head coach and the softball head coach are pending receipt of national BCI reports.
Is it, can I ask a question? At this point, do they have their BCI check?
I believe they have the state BCI check, but waiting on the national one.
Okay.
Since this has gone out, some of these have come back, the nationals.
National is slower than the state? Can't just do it right away?
Nationals come back quickly in a day, usually, but, yeah.
People work, so they have to get their own.
You have to go to the state office in order to get that, the Attorney General's office. You can't get it from your local
That's
police
the
department.
national
That's
one.
the national. Local one you can get from your,
It's done in the,
your police
here in
department.
Burrillville.
Right.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion for athletic appointments,
So-
2018-19, for Lorraine Nicole, winter chair, assistant coach for BHS, and James Lambert, wrestling coach for BHS, pending the national BCI.
So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to know,
Take a second.
second?
Motion and second, discussion?
So in my initial motion, I did them all at once,
Right.
all the athletic appointments
I'm
at
sorry,
once.
I'll withdraw.
Doesn't matter either way, but
These are different than the,
Yeah, this was a separate.
this is an addition that we were given this evening.
right, so that was my intent, just to group them together, just all athletic appointments for the high school and middle school as presented. I don't mind taking them
She
separately.
didn't name them individually.
I didn't
She
name them
named-
individually, I
she
just
named them all as athletic
named them
appointments.
all. But I can't,
So they'll be-
we can name them separately.
Okay, I'll withdraw if she did it all together. I'll withdraw.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item. Old business, fiscal year 19 BSD budget update.
Mr. Chair, motion to open.
Second.
Motion open to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Does anyone have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
Receive and file.
Second?
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Fiscal year 19 rink budget update.
Motion to open.
Second.
Motion open to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one has any questions? A motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8, superintendent's reports.
Motion to open.
Second?
Motion open and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Chair Brazad, committee members. I have a couple of items to discuss tonight. I want to start with our upcoming robotics night, which is scheduled for April 24th from 6 to 8. It'll be here at the high school, probably in the auditorium. We had originally scheduled it in the either cafeteria or in the auxiliary gym. But as of today, we've got word that we have over 160 people signed up to attend. It's April 24th. That's Wednesday, starting at 6 o'clock. So maybe move to the auditorium. I've been working with Andy Aldrich, who's done a fantastic job leading our robotics team, not only here at the high school, but at each of the elementary schools as well, including a robotics team at Levy, which he started a few weeks ago. They've developed some codapillars, they call them, which are little codable caterpillars that they plug into each other. And our high school kids have built tracks, and the codapillars follow the tracks around on the floor. So should be a good night. There'll be competitions between the competing elementary school clubs, and our robotics and engineering kids are creating trophies to give to each of the teams at the end of the night. So our Cte programs will also be presenting that night, or really having kind of a showcase where they'll have tables set up, so as parents come in to watch the elementary robotics night, they'll get a chance to see what's going on in our Cte programs as well. So mark your calendars, that's April 24th at 6 o'clock. More than likely we'll be in the auditorium. Any questions on robotics night?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear where it was gonna be. I don't know if I'm having, if I got wax in my ears.
Auditorium?
Yeah, but I can't hear anything.
I think it's the rain from outside, it's drowning everything out. Yeah, it'll be in the auditorium. It's the 24th of April at 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, wanted to give you an update on our career and tech ed programs. We have received word from the Department of Ed that our criminal justice program has been approved by Rhode as a CTE program for next year. We had 4 applications go in. Criminal justice was the only one that received full approval. However, our biomedical program, I threw a challenge flag, if you will, on that. It did not get approved, and I'm appealing that decision. The reason it did not get approved was based on training. All the other components were in place, but the regulations say that all of the teachers have to be trained prior to the program being approved. The teachers have been trained on everything with the exception of one course, which will be offered in September, and the teacher is attending training in July. So I'm appealing that decision to the board. The next board meeting is in third week of April, I believe. I think it's the April 26th, maybe. So I'll be attending that board meeting, and hopefully the challenge flag will be reversed. That decision will be reversed. I think it will be. I did speak to the director of the CTE program, the program coordinator at the Department of Ed, Steve Osborne, and he's the one who advised me that we should probably appeal that, with hopes that the board will overturn that decision and will fully approve our biomedical program. If it does get approved, that will be another program that we can fully offer to us, not just our students, but students from other districts as well. And then Friday of this week, our CTE programs, students and some of our teachers will be presenting at Woonsocket High School to offer some of our programs to students at Woonsocket. Any questions about our career and tech ed programs?
Is this our first presentation to a different school for CTE programs? Is this our first one?
It is.
All right.
Yeah, we did present to the middle school.
Exciting to see what, the feedback from.
Absolutely. We had some great results with our middle school presentation. Peter Berthollet was head of the guidance department here. He led the discussion and was highly involved in the presentation, got great feedback from parents and students, many of which were totally unaware of the programs that we're offering here at the high school. So we hope to mirror that at Woonsocket on Friday. So stay tuned. I will keep you updated. Next item, our budget workshop is scheduled. I'll be emailing everyone tomorrow. I was notified we have some last-minute date conflicts with our budget workshop, which was originally scheduled for April 16th. So I'll be emailing everyone with some other options. Hopefully we can reschedule that as soon as possible. And finally, final item on my report, legislative issues. I know in my Friday memo I sent out a summary of some legislative bills that have been proposed to the General Assembly. Just wanted to open that up for discussion if anyone had any comments or any feedback on the legislative summary that was provided last week.
We did, a group of us did attend the Rhode Island Association of School Committees legislative meeting this past weekend with Representative Amori and Senator Pearson. It was encouraging to hear them speak, and I think that they're giving us good representation. And we all did have questions for them, mostly concerning what was in our agenda. And I don't think there was any answers that we didn't expect. So I think it went very well.
I'd just like to add that we have a lobbyist for the Superintendent's Association, Tim Ryan, and I do hear from him weekly on legislative updates, so anything that's pertinent or important, I certainly will forward to you as that develops.
I'll throw out one question as it relates to, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, the CTE issues that we were kind of talking about, curtailing our abilities to continue. Is there any progress on that or any feedback?
It's under revision. That proposed bill is under revision right now. Has not been brought forward yet. That was sponsored by Representative Shanley from Warwick, and he heard some feedback from both students, parents, and administrators. So they're revising that and they're going to represent it. Haven't heard on a date for the new proposal yet. I do think that one of the one of the suggestions that was brought, there was an ad hoc group from the Superintendent's Association that met with Representative Shanley. Said if your local school offers a substantially equivalent program as to a neighboring school, then students have to attend that program at their home school. So for example, our biomed program or our construction management program or our engineering program, students who are Burrillville residents would not be able to go to, say, a Pontigansett or another CTE program in those areas if we have an approved program. So that's what we're hoping is in the new language. That was our some recommendations that came out from that group, but we don't know what that language is going to look like until the bill's actually released.
And was that also in that same piece, the restrictions that may be placed on districts from pursuing CTE programs that exist in neighboring communities? Was that still part of that same?
Yes, you can pursue them for your own students, but you can't take a student from a neighboring district who has the same program.
Well, I guess I was referring to us being proactive in trying to offer new programs, because wasn't that another piece that was?
Originally, I think the language said if you had a program that no one else offered, that wasn't offered at a regional center, then you could take students from neighboring districts.
Yeah, I guess the question was whether we as a district could entertain trying to pursue a new CTE pathway here because there was discussion about preventing us maybe.
Also, if it's offered at, say, Woonsocket,
right, we don't even
center, we have no option to do that.
Right, is that?
I don't think that's on the table at all.
Okay, all right.
They don't have the right to tell us what programs we could offer our own students.
Perfect, right. Okay, good, thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Anyone have any questions for the superintendent?
Can I reiterate, so the budget workshop for the 16th of April has been canceled right now?
Yes, we'll have to reschedule that. I apologize for the late notice, but I'll get something out tomorrow, possible dates on that.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, number 9, administrators' reports.
Mr. Chair, motion to receive and file with a very large thank you to all administrators, staff, students for all the great, important, educational information regarding arts, sports, and everything that goes on in our school system. I thank you for the in-depth reports that are given. Thank you.
Second.
I'd just like to make a comment. I was reading through the Bronco update, and all the participants that took the plunge, God bless them. That's all I've got to say. Wow.
So noted.
Yeah.
It's really so inspiring to read this every month from the district administrators, the building administrators, principals. It's what is in here and what goes on in schools that we don't have the opportunity to see on a regular basis. But the information that's in here and the stories in here are just amazing.
It is.
What goes on in our
Very
schools.
amazing.
It's very fortunate to have the staff that we have.
Yeah.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 10, reports of school committee subcommittees. Alex?
So I have a few things. The Burrillville High School Athletic Advisory Board met on Wednesday, March 20th. It was a great meeting to discuss other ways to improve student and community involvement and engagement in athletics and other extracurricular activities. And it was a very positive discussion, which I think was much needed. I am going to start prepping this quarter's Health and Wellness Subcommittee meeting agenda and invitation. I'm hoping to have that out by end of week, but I will send it to Dr. Solito so that he can forward it to all of you for informational purposes. And BPAC met last Wednesday as well, and it was another great meeting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The policy subcommittee did meet on March 20th and came up with the policy for hiring the superintendent.
Right.
And it's here for
First reading.
approval tonight.
Here for first reading. Okay. Anyone else? All right, having none. Item 11, correspondence communications. Alex?
I was hoping just to share some information regarding the new RADS Kids program. I don't know if you all received the townwide communications that have gone out. I'll also send those to Dr. Slito so that he can forward them to you. But through the District Health and Wellness Subcommittee, we are starting the RAD Kids program. It's a personal empowerment and safety education course for students at the elementary school level. So we are going to pilot the program at Sear Farm in Callahan towards the end of April and early May. And then depending on how successful it is, we're hoping to then run a session at Levy and the middle school. It's going to be an hour. There are 3 sessions, 1 a week, and it's $20 for the entire 3-week program for families. And then there's going to be a demonstration and a certificate presentation after the last class from 4:15 to 4:45. So parents will be able to attend. We're hoping to have some police officers from the police department to be there as well. And the instructor is Sergeant Steve Lombardi. He's a 20-year law enforcement veteran that spent years dealing with child predators every day as a member of the United States Marshals Sex Offender Task Force. So really what he's doing is he's teaching our elementary school students how to protect themselves and their peers against others who may pose as threats. So there's all different skill sets that they learn, what a stranger is, what to do if they feel as though they are being attacked or they may be attacked. Any other big things, Dr. Salito?
Yeah, no, I think
Big
you covered the
concepts?
majority of it. A lot of it is about making right decisions and what to do if someone either approaches you, touches you, or makes you feel uncomfortable, either physically or emotionally, and either through words or actions.
Strangers and tricks.
Stranger danger and
Right.
those kind of concepts, but really taking it to another level. One of the things they talk a lot about is the rule of sight and sound. Always be within sight of an adult that you trust, and always be within the range where they can hear you. And he also does a small little hands-on component of it, so what to do if someone tries to grab you and they act out different scenarios.
And I think it's important to note, too, that he makes it very age-appropriate. So even though they're high-level, mature topics, they're appropriate for our kids in elementary school. So school administration teams have the information and the handouts to send to families. And I just want to thank the entire Health and Wellness Subcommittee, Steve, Andrea Hall, who's our rec director for the town, Dr. Slito, and Mark for all of their support in getting this piloted.
It's a great program. It's a great collaboration between the town and the school and the community. Very
All
good.
that information is going to be presented to us in our weekly packet?
Yes,
please?
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll give you a copy of the flyer that's going out to parents as well.
All right, thank you.
Email. Anyone else? Having none. Next item, DECA Club Letter. So we do have a letter in your packet, agenda item 11A, which we received. The Burrillville High School competed at the Rhode Island State Career Development Conference, and Burrillville High School came out on top again. These students have earned the privilege of attending DECA's International Career Development Conference in Orlando, Florida on April 26th through the 30th. So in accordance with the school committee policy 3849 recognition, DECA is asking for our financial support with the students having demonstrated extraordinary achievements.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve a $500 donation to the DECA for the attending the International Career Development Conference in Orlando, Florida on April 26th through the 30th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice job.
Thank you. Great job.
Just want to thank our DECA advisors, Mary Lou Tupper and Ed Santoro, for all their work on that, and I'll let them know about the generous donation.
Thank you. Next item, BEC letter. We received a letter, agenda item 11B.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to give the support to BEC to make a third site at the A.T. Levy School.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I think this is a very valuable service that could help considerably in retaining and assisting students and parents at the A.T. Levy School. So I think this is very important for us and a good step forward. So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. This letter really is in support, or the vote is in support of researching and planning the possibility of having a third site there. So it's really just in the discussion. I want it to be clear. It's just in the discussion stages right now of whether the site can support it and whether it can be worked out logistically.
Yeah. I attended the meeting, the BEC meeting, when they were talking about this, and one of the things they were discussing was the busing issue, and I can tell you firsthand experience, it is hard to, not hard, but it is, you got a group of kids leaving one school, going to another school, and, it ties up the buses at that one particular school, which causes a backup, which it's a,
Snowball effect.
like a, what am I trying to say, effect, it's a, it does create a lot of problems,
We've
so-
also have issues with some of the younger kids from Levy not knowing, particularly in the beginning of the year, which days they're going to BEC, which days they get on the bus that goes home. So we had several cases this year, particularly earlier in the school year, where kids were on the wrong bus. So it would eliminate that issue as well.
It's really hard, and like you said, it's, you got one, the child may not be going every day of the week. So, and then you get the bus driver trying to figure it out, and so it
It will be a good idea.
yeah, it'll be a great idea.
Just,
I agree, Dennis.
yeah, just one comment on it. You had presented to us the opportunity for the alternative after-school program. I'm assuming you'll probably get some feedback from that before they decide whether this is a viable solution, right? Because that's going to be enrollment over the summer for the fall, or?
The academic program would not start up until the fall, and so the two would operate side by side. So we had conversations with Kelly Canoyer and talked about the shared use of space. So even at Levy, if it goes forward, we already have an idea in our head about how we would share that space so that a PC site could happen there.
Good.
All right, thank you.
Any other
Mayor,
discussion?
is this anything that will have to also be forwarded to the town council for their approval?
I think she already presented to the town council, and they are,
Has it been?
It has, I think they had a meeting already, and it has been presented to the town council, I believe, and I don't want to talk, but I believe.
I think the town council supported the idea.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, and it was.
When would that go into place if the feasibility study shows that it?
Fall of next year, beginning of
Oh,
next school year.
okay.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, 12, new business. P5115, first reading.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve policy P5115, superintendent search, first reading, and dispense with the reading.
A motion
Second?
and a second. Discussion.
Yes. The last paragraph in the, the last sentence in the first paragraph, where it says, establish a screening committee and an interview subcommittee for the purpose of selecting and interviewing candidates. I would like to see that where it talks about the responsibilities of the school committee, as you see where the bullets are, and move it to the bottom of those bullets. Move it to the third item, where our duties are to determine the needs of the district and advertise for the position. And the third duty would be establish a screening subcommittee and an interview committee.
So just to clarify, the last sentence of the second paragraph will be removed from that paragraph and
Yes.
added as a third bullet.
Yep, yep.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to amend my motion to include that change.
All right, so just hold your motion, because
Okay.
there'll probably be more changes. So we have yours. Anyone else?
I just have a few questions.
Okay, Alex.
So this policy was created as like a net new policy, right? It wasn't revised?
This is a new policy.
New
Yeah.
policy, new policy.
Okay.
There's not an existing
First reading.
policy.
Right, so it's not like we took our staff hiring policy and then refreshed
Right.
for the superintendent search. Okay.
Would you like me to go first?
Sure.
For the paragraph, the screening subcommittee paragraph, just before the last sentence, it says qualified candidates will possess proper Rhode Island certification or demonstrate eligibility for Rhode Island certification. With that, we should have a set period of time for certification, and they should be certified prior to the start of work. I don't think we should put ourselves in a position where a candidate is given a period of time after they're hired to get certification. The certification should be completed prior to the start of work. So just for clarification, I think we should add language to that effect.
With certification completed
Time.
at the time, at
Could
first
say
day of school.
prior to appointment?
Yeah.
Would that cover it? Certification prior to appointment?
Or after
Well,
appointment?
certification prior to the start of work.
Prior to the start of work.
Right, okay.
I got all these two in, so we'll compare notes later.
On the next item, the interview subcommittee will be responsible for generating questions and interviewing the qualified candidates. The next sentence, the subcommittee shall be chaired by a member of the school committee. So we should have clarification on that. If the interview subcommittee is not going to be chaired by the chairperson of the school committee, then what will be the process by which a chair is appointed, selected?
Could be the chair or designee, perhaps?
Just for clarification, if it's going to be the chair or designee, or if the intent with the policy subcommittee was to have the school committee kind of vote on someone to do it, or it could be the chair of the committee or the designee. So whichever, what was the intent of the
I have a
committee?
question, and I thought that the last time we interviewed for a superintendent, we had a set number of questions that we would ask, and we were each appointed the question to ask. I thought those were the questions that we would ask.
We will, we're going to get to that.
All right.
We'll get to that, but right now, we're deciding clarification of that sentence. So if you would like it to be the chair of this, the subcommittee would be chaired by the chairperson or their designee? Is that the intent of that sentence or of that paragraph?
I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I think.
Yes, I am too.
I
Sure.
think
Okay,
that's reasonable.
okay.
Got it.
The chair or
Or designate.
the designee.
Yep.
On the same interview subcommittee, when we have the list of bullets of who would be on the interview subcommittee, when it comes to representative of the personnel board or designee, we should remove designee. And it'll be a representative of the personnel board or no one.
Yes.
So the representative of the personnel board is not gonna designate someone else.
Yeah.
So just remove or designee.
Agree.
And that's it for me. Alex, you have something?
I was just going to add, in terms of that list, I personally don't think 3 school committee members should serve on that Interview Subcommittee. I think 2 should. I think just when we do 3, that's almost half of us, and we're going to have our opportunity to interview the finalists anyway.
Yeah, I would have to agree, especially if the chair or designee is going to be, then that would make it, 4 people, would make a quorum, so.
No, the chair would be one of the 3.
Yeah. Okay, the chair would be one of the 3.
Yeah.
I personally think it
chair
should be
and
chair and 1 other school committee member. 1 appointed school committee member, but that's just my thought.
That's what we're here for. So, I don't have a preference on it. I think 3 members does get close to the quorum. I think that 3 members might be able to have a better opportunity to sway the rest of the committee. I think there's validity in just having 2 members, because this is going to be a lot of members, a lot of people on the committee. So I'm not opposed to that, but I'll hear comment from the committee.
Well, I think 3 members gives the opportunity for a more difference of opinions regarding candidates in their presentations. And having 3, it's not like we're having a set quorum, but having 3 members gives more of an opportunity for difference of opinions to be presented. And I think that would be very important to have the leader of our district given the opportunity of each of these 3 members, including the chair, to express a different opinion if they see something different about the candidate that they do not, that this whole committee can discuss. If a particular person, such as the chair or whoever else is assigned, sees something in that person that should be brought up, I think having 3 members would be better than just having 2.
I think she's trying to say with 3 members, it gives the school committee more of a stake in this process. Alex?
Just to follow up, and again, if we keep it 3, that's fine. I think my thought process is, on that list right now, there's potentially 14 people sitting on the interview subcommittee. That is a lot of differing opinions and thoughts, and I personally just think that's too many people. I think as a school committee, we're going to entrust in the screening and the interview subcommittees their judgment, and then they will forward along the 3 or 4 finalists to us, and then that will be our opportunity to really dig deep and fully interview those finalists. I just feel like 14 people is an extremely large interview subcommittee, and I know it's very important, but
if you look at the bottom 2, parent representative and a community representative, not parent.
We could eliminate a community representative non-parent.
Non-parent, I
If
think
it's the amount of
99% of us, or 90, a good percentage of us, either has or have had a student in the school district.
Of these people, too.
I can at least speak to the thought process.
And a lot of these people that are already on that will be appointed to the board, that applies to them also, having had a student or has a student in the district.
Dot, if we could hear from the policy subcommittee what their thoughts were on that, regarding the community representative, non-parent.
Can I just make one comment about the numbers? They're very similar to what the last interview committee was.
Correct.
Oh, I agree, but some people thought the last committee had too many people, so. What was your process on that?
We just were thinking more in terms of a taxpayer. I mean, to your point, Dot, you're probably right. Most people will have had some relationship or something, but our thought process was somebody that would be removed from the school system, coming from it just from like a taxpayer's perspective, a non-parent kind of.
And
that was.
You're also looking at a person who may be does not have a child at this particular point, but will have a child in the school district later on. But having a parent representative is good because they already are aware of what is happening in the school district concerning their child and what they would like to add or change or keep the same.
I like the fact that all of these have a different point of view as far as the superintendent is concerned, and different point of view of what's going on in the schools also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with having the school committee members as they are, that helps. Their responsibility is the overview of the schools. And each one of these people who are on this committee would be giving a piece of it. They know a piece of it more than anyone else. But the school committee itself is able to see the whole picture during this.
Who would be appointing the community representative?
I guess the chair would, or the policy
The
committee.
chair or designee?
Yeah, I think the last time the parent was selected from the middle school, I think was the case. It was just a parent who was very active and became an obvious choice. But that may not be the case, or there may be others to select from. So that may be best filtered through the chair, maybe just to say there's, here's 5 or 6 people here, their involvement in the school, and you can kind of filter that. I mean, that, or whoever the chair is at the time.
I was just going to say that. We're going to be here for at least a decade.
I hope so. Cross my fingers.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so whoever the chair is would have the option on that, at that particular time, whatever the sentiment of the community is at that time, it possibly could be an opportunity to round out the.
I mean, that could be something that you could just, a small investment in soliciting interested people to, whatever the case may be. And if I could just make one comment to the
We
three.
could eliminate town council representative.
That was good timing, Mark.
Touche.
Perfect, Mark.
Good time.
That was good timing. It is
Just to touch on the 3 school committee member piece, I feel pretty strongly about the 3. In an essence that one is, that's our job, really the most important job is to fine tune who's going to be that. And then the other piece is just sort of to speak to what Dot had said, because it does give, 3 diverse opinions, but at the same time incorporating everybody else's information can help to sort of guide that process. I think it is
Being on the last selection committee, when we would get together, the school committee members were asked questions from the other participants in the committee because they were unaware of certain things that were going on, and they would be asked questions. Well, what do you think about blah, 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 blah? Those were the kind of things that would happen. So to have 3 members of the school committee present, I think is a better way to help the committee choose a great superintendent for our district. And when you look at parent representative and the community representative, I think you're looking at the same thing.
We can leave the list as is. I just feel as though, as a school committee, we're entrusting in these 13-plus people, 14 people, to do their job and provide us with the most qualified applicants. So I don't think we necessarily have to have complete control and oversight over that stage.
No.
I think those applicants are going to come to us. So I personally think 3 is too many. So my suggestion would be to change that to 2, and then to either merge the parent representative and community representative line to just make it a community representative, or just a parent representative. So then at least we have 12 people rather than 14. I just feel like 14 people is way too many, but.
Any other comment?
I think that as listed, we would do well. There will be lots of difference of opinions and great discussion regarding candidates. And it's always insightful to hear other people's opinions regarding candidates. And there may be something that you did not notice in a response that this person noticed and gave thought to and presented it to the committee, and finding it helpful in making a final decision.
I think as a compromise, might consider eliminating a community representative. The chair wouldn't have to select from a person. Everyone else is kind of pre-selected. We know who that's going to be and come that. So I think we could cut the list down slightly and
Maybe merge, if I could, merge the community representative, parent/community representative, so it could be either or.
it could be either or.
Just a suggestion.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would go with that. Sure.
Okay.
And do we want to say as designated by the chair? Or just to clarify the selection process?
Well, the last time the parent was like selected herself because she was.
Yeah, it was a parent who's heavily involved in school improvement. She was selected from the middle school because the middle school, I think, didn't have representation at the time.
Right.
So we were trying to make sure all the schools.
So I'm sure whoever the chair is at the time is going, if the middle school principal or Julie or somebody comes and said, this parent's really involved and this is a good selection, well then, at that time, I'm sure that whoever the chair is will be in agreement. Okay. So what did we decide?
Parent,
I have 5 changes.
parent
I'm
or
gonna go over.
community representative.
Right, so that's the only one I'm on right now is the parent representative, community representative / community representative, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
I know, we're gonna stay with 2 or 3.
Three.
Three.
This person?
We're
Yeah,
gonna stay
the
with
chair.
3, okay.
So we're gonna add language to say appointed by the chair.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying. Chairs the committees.
So the last thing we're gonna discuss is Dot had a question about the makeup of the questions. You had a question about the makeup of the selection of,
Yes.
The questions.
I thought that there was a set of questions that we normally ask, and looking at the,
there is a set of questions, but I think right now, there's no need for that set of questions at this time. Julie?
So there was, in the original hiring policy, there were some suggested questions
Yes.
that served as a foundation.
that's right.
For the superintendent selection, most recently, we built off of those, but questions were formed based on the standards for
Has it
administrators,
changed?
for superintendents, so that we touched on each of the national standards
Okay.
in the interview, and that's how those were developed.
All right.
So, that helps.
And
So those questions will be developed
So they
more
would
when the
be
time
developed
comes, and it doesn't
with
have
the
to be in a
new-
policy.
Right.
Right.
because
The new standards.
as time goes by, the
Okay.
questions may be different.
Exactly.
Right, the questions may be different.
Right, there were
Okay.
questions about more common current
Right.
events, so they're.
Gotcha.
If I could just make one comment to that effect, I think the thought was that maybe we would all, as a committee, see them before.
Oh, yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, because the subcommittee saw them, but no committee, other committee member saw the full set of questions, even though we're not going to be sitting in the interview, just to, as a committee, see what questions are being asked.
Just
and
to
then
be included in the process.
I think, yeah, just to have an understanding of what's going to be asked.
The number of people on the committee will go through those and talk about them before we ask the questions, if I'm correct in that. And we ask the questions, and then we bring forth the candidates and probably why we bring forth. And these are the questions that we asked. And I believe that you may ask a question of those candidates yourself, because we as a school committee make the final decision
That's right.
on the 3 or 4 or 5 candidates that we bring forth.
Right, so we could ask our own questions.
You
at
can
the end
ask
anyway
them
when
all the
they
questions.
It actually
As
says
far
that
as-
Yeah.
in the second to last
Yeah.
paragraph. It
Yeah.
says the school committee will be responsible for creating final interview questions.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Alex?
I have 2 more quick
Hey,
questions.
you don't have to be quick. I
Um,
have to run on my truck and get some gloves, but, all right.
that's why I put my coat on.
A couple of chunks of coal, maybe, Robin? No?
This is just because I don't know, this is just an innocent question. Is it normal protocol for the finalists to tour the school buildings and meet with staff prior to being interviewed by the committee?
It has been,
It has been? Okay.
not normally, not all the time.
Common practice.
It is, okay, perfect. That's what I was alluding to. And then my only other question, and again, it's just due to lack of knowledge on my end. So we say demonstrate eligibility for Rhode Island certification prior to start of work. Do we need to add in some language if they don't finish that program or they don't earn their certification? What is step B?
They have,
Talk about reciprocal certification.
Reciprocity?
Reciprocity, yes.
That was an important piece to what we discussed, yeah.
Wouldn't be necessarily a course that they have to take. They would have to, what would they'd have to show
So
their
they
credentials.
changed the reciprocity rules have changed through the Department of Ed. Now you just have to apply for it if it's from Massachusetts or Connecticut. Other states, there still may be a little more in-depth of a process. So if you have someone applying for, I know Florida is also reciprocal, but say Virginia or New Hampshire, the process may look a little different. So I wouldn't want to say that that would only deal with states that have reciprocity. So if they don't get if the person doesn't get the certification, they can't legally be hired.
Right, so I just
By
don't know if
general law, they can't
we
be
want
hired.
to allude to.
Right. I understand, so to Alex's point, on the interim, we don't want to exclude qualified candidates over someone that may not get qualified.
And I'm all right
There's
with
a time
including
frame,
all,
right.
all qualifying candidates based on
right.
what we have here. My thought is, for whatever reason they don't qualify or they're not eligible in the end.
Because if you're applying for a superintendent position in Rhode Island, you should make yourself qualify prior to your interview.
I'll speak to, if I could, just to that, because we
Yeah.
had a long discussion about that. If you're thinking of applying and you live in Kentucky and you want to come to Rhode Island, you're going to do the legwork, because you're not just, applying just to hope to get a job here.
Right.
If you're applying for Mass in Connecticut, there's a good chance that maybe you don't want to do the legwork because you've applied to 4 places in Massachusetts and 1 in Rhode Island. So did you really want to go take the 2 courses and pay the $100?
Right.
Now that they're going to have reciprocity, Mass and Connecticut can automatically just
Right.
be approved. Whereas someone from out of state, they'd have to do that legwork, or else they're not a serious candidate anyway. You know what I mean? So I think
Right,
that's.
so I
that we have
agree,
that-
but to clarify the language is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Right,
all,
yeah,
just
yeah,
clarify,
yeah.
because the demonstrate eligibility,
It's a little vague.
right, that
Yeah.
could be saying,
How
oh,
do you
I'm
do
gonna
that?
finish my
Right.
certification or my program in a year.
Right, so how
So-
can we make that language more substantive to the applicant?
Right.
What was that? What would we do?
We're right here, we're right here. This is the question.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know what you
Well, we
said.
want to make the
Or
language more substantive for the applicant, so the applicant.
It's already in there.
right.
That was one of the
not
changes
vague.
already. No, so I think what we could do to kind of define, demonstrate eligibility, you could say that they must hold a state superintendent certification. Any
Exactly
state.
right.
That would demonstrate eligibility if they hold any state certification.
Must hold, right.
So after where it says demonstrate eligibility for Rhode Island certification, parenthetically, we'd put the
Yeah.
state superintendent certification.
Yeah.
So if they have any certification from any state, and then that would have to be, the Rhode Island certification would have to be prior to his or her start of work.
But if they could demonstrate eligibility for Rhode Island certification, wouldn't they have to have a certification for superintendent?
You would think so, but being on the last team, There are lots of, there were candidates that did not have certification from the state they were coming from. They had no superintendent certification. So I think it's good language to add, to make sure that they're already a qualified, certified superintendent.
Mr. Chair, I know there's a motion on the floor. Can I propose an amended motion, or?
You want to withdraw your motion?
I'm going to withdraw the motion so that the things that we have discussed can be implemented and it be brought back to the committee at our next meeting as the first reading revised.
As there is no rush.
That was my motion, so Dottie said it perfectly.
Dot, can you make that, you just make that a motion?
I will
That was
make
my
that an
motion, so.
official motion. That
And I
it should
second.
be, I withdraw my first motion and make the motion that the changes that have been discussed will be made to the policy and brought back to our next meeting as a first reading revised.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Just a big thanks to Don, Sylvia, and Julie for meeting.
Yeah, great.
This is
Good job.
Thank you.
a great copy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item, P5221, policies, procedures, and guidelines to recruit, support, and retain highly effective staff, revised.
Mr.
First
Chair, I'd
reading.
like to make a motion to send this to the policy subcommittee before it comes again to the full school committee.
I have a motion.
Second.
A second. Discussion.
Just a question, I know there was a little bit of urgency, but was it related to just outdated,
Yeah.
It was outdated language, as I
Language.
recall, we discussed it when
Yes.
we met
Yeah.
as a subcommittee, and we said we would throw the new language in there.
yeah.
So language has been updated, but we still like to review it.
Yeah, it would be good for us to spend a little time just to digest it all, and if we could, that would be, okay, fair enough.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
I need a motion.
And a second.
Should get the
We're into
second.
discussion. All
Okay.
right. Any further discussion? Having none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item, approve homeschool applications.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve homeschooling applications.
Second?
Motion to second, discussion. Having none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 13, committee comments on agenda items. Anyone? Having none. Item 14, pending issues. We have none, no items pending. Item 15,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.